Brightspace is the LMS that helps you reach every learner. It makes teaching and learning easier by letting you focus on what's most important, your students and their experience. You can start building courses quickly by simply dragging and dropping content into them. And even create content right in the system, like adding images or videos with just a few clicks. The responsive interface looks great on a laptop, tablet, or smartphone, and it works on any device. Brightspace also lets you teach the way you want. Built-in communication tools let you create a connected learning experience with homepage news feeds, online discussions, and web conferencing. And whether you're fully online, blended, or flipped, Brightspace lets you use lots of different pedagogical approaches, like competency-based education and gamification. It helps you work smarter too. Built-in analytics lets you quickly check on how everyone in the class is doing. You can also dive deeper to review individual performance in more detail. And with smart rules and smart tools, you can automatically trigger activities based upon what a student does or doesn't do to personalize their learning experience. Easy, flexible, smart. That's Brightspace.
Temperature rise will bring widespread devastation and unprecedented extreme weather.
New coronavirus cases emerge across the country.
Obesity rates have more than doubled in kids.
Cape Town is running out of water.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vikas Pota. I'm the founder of T4. Happy Thursday to all of you. It is 5:04 p.m. in London. It's as grey as it always is. And the lucky thing is it's not raining. And so I'm really pleased to welcome you to another edition of this T4tv series, where we bring to you friends from all around the world to come and discuss things in their minds, their experiences, and their perspectives on things to do with education. So today, I'm really pleased that I have with me Richard Culatta, who is the CEO of ISTE, and many of us will be familiar with ISTE because of their great work. It is an abbreviation for the International Society for Technology and Education. Please welcome Richard Culatta. Richard,
how are you?
Did I get that right?
You got it right. It's great to be here with you today.
Fantastic. And so, Richard, thank you so much for joining us. And your work is just incredible. And we've seen so much impact and so much great stuff that has come from the ISTE stable, including all of your training programs, all of the learning opportunities, all of the networking that can happen. And obviously your big event that takes place every year is something that I know many educators in the US and around the world look forward to. And so I'm really grateful that you're gracing our platform, and we see you as a huge inspiration. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Richard, the T4tv platform has been given birth to during the pandemic. We have been focused on actually building this global community of educators and schools through tools such as online events. And just last week, for example, we concluded this year's World Education Week with 120 schools and high impact organizations organizing their own virtual events that resulted in something like 81,000 tickets based on school expertise. Who would have thought that, right? People coming forward and taking part in that. And now we have the World's Best School Prizes, which you're a judge of as well. Is there anything that you'd like to start off by sharing words of encouragement and inspiration with teachers on the TV platform?
So yes, absolutely. I mean, look, this has been it's been a rough 18 months or so, right? And I know that teachers, education leaders are feeling the effects of that and feeling tired, exhausted. But one of the things that I would share, and this is important to note, and I've spent most of my career working in innovation, right? Before coming to ISTE, I was the chief innovation officer for the state of Rhode Island. I worked in an innovation role at the U.S. federal government. And one of the things that we see always is that after moments of disruption, of major disruption, of crisis, whatever it is, there's always a bloom of innovation that happens, right? There's always a moment of accelerated innovation on the other side of that. And something about disruption and chaos and tough moments sets the conditions to be able to innovate in ways that were harder to do before. And so I say all that because this is a moment, as you're talking about recognizing some of the best teachers around the world, it's a moment where even though we are in these kind of frustrating conditions, having gone through a really rough year, it's actually a time where we're going to start to see some of the most innovation we have ever seen, at least in the last several decades, and certainly for the next several, happening over these next years. So thank you to all the teachers that are out there that are doing this, that are taking advantage of this great moment. You're really going to be setting the direction that we head in for many, many years to come based on the things that you're doing in this year.
And so, Richard, before we go further, I actually want to make this engaging with those people that are watching and yourself. And so I want to just tell everyone that we're streaming across multiple platforms, and just to make you aware of all these different platforms if you're watching. And so you can join our LinkedIn group and our page. You can join our YouTube channel. We have a very big Facebook group and also a new page called T4 Education. But if you are going to watch on Facebook, the one thing that I do request is we would love to see your photo and your name. And so you need to go to streamyard.com/Facebook and give permission so that we can see exactly who you are. Otherwise, what we'll end up with is a situation like this where you're saying hi from the UK and I don't know who you are. And that's not good enough. So please go to streamyard.com/Facebook and do that. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter as well, T4educ. Because this is the age of social media and that is what we are going to be talking about. We also have for our new prizes, you can go to any of the platforms and do @BestSchoolPrize and use the hashtag #StrongSchool. So thank you so much for supporting us so much to date. Last week, or rather earlier this week, I interviewed Nieves Segovia from SEK Education Group in Spain, and I should also say that they have a virtual global education forum that's taking place 13th to the 15th this week, as in now, that you can also participate in, and you can go to globaleducationforum.org and register for this free event, and I'm sure you'll be welcome. And one of the things that I'm very keen on is the connection between K-12 education and higher education needs to be stronger, and so this is a great opportunity to provide various types of inputs and insights. Now, Richard, the reason I was keen to have you is that you've written a book very recently on raising kids to thrive in an online world, as the ticker tape says at the bottom of the screen. The question really you've started the conversation on is we're entering into an era of just incredible hyper innovation. But that really scares me. And so, there's plenty of things that are broken, that's for sure, in education. Where do you see this innovation actually impacting exactly what your book title says? which is how do you raise kids to thrive? Please give us an introduction into your book.
Sure, it's a great question. Oh, by the way, I'm realizing I have it right here. So if you haven't
Now,
seen it,
that's a surprise.
right?
That's a surprise.
Digital for Good. That worked out well. I didn't even plan that. It just happened to be sitting there. But let me tell you a premise that is really important for the book, and I think will answer your question. And that's this. It's two parts. So the first part is the world that we have kids, the digital world that our kids are stepping into today is enormously complex. It is highly complex and complicated. Way more complex and complicated than the digital world that any of us stepped into, right? Because the digital world that we stepped into, judging by the color of my hair, right, roughly, right, it was very simple and it grew up with us. It became complex with us. Now that doesn't mean that adults are great at being good digital citizens either, but we had a chance to have it evolve as we evolved. We are now taking young kids and sort of just throwing them into the deep end of a very complex digital world. And that's the first challenge. And that's one of the first things that I call out in the book is we have to be way more thoughtful about how we're preparing them to thrive in this world. So that's thing one. And I can talk about some strategies to do that in a minute. But the second thing that I will share and the challenge that I set up in the book is we have for a long time, and I, as I researched and I worked with families and schools and got input from people around the world, one of the things that we seem to have settled on is that the bar that we're looking for is to have kids be safe online, right? Online safety. That is such a ridiculously low bar. I don't even have language strong enough to say how much we fail kids if all our goal is to keep them safe. Like, right? Of course I want them safe. When we drive a car, we put on a seatbelt. We want to be safe. But that's not the purpose of cars. That's not where, right? And the same is with the virtual world. Yes, we should be safe, but our goal should be way above that. We want them to be engaged, happy, healthy, thriving, contributing, collaborative, informed members of the digital world, not just people who are safe but walking around having no idea how to thrive in this space.
But you can understand the concern that people have. Like, Richard, you speak about this great, construct saying we want everyone to be happy, clappy kids.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know the foggiest way to start.
Well, this is why I wrote the book, right? So I think that's the idea is that we need to start having that conversation. And look, most people don't, and that's okay, right? I have a no guilt rule, right? Nobody needs to feel guilty or badly because we haven't done this before, but we do need to recognize that the conversations that we need to have are about how do we help them thrive. I propose 5 areas where we need to focus, and they are things like being informed. How can kids have the skills that they need today to be informed in a virtual world? And it's so, we throw out true, fake news and true. That's so oversimplifies it, right? It's much more complicated than that. Sure, there's some blatantly fake news, but really it's a question of knowing what information you need for a given purpose. And some information that is opinion-based, that is, maybe totally relevant in certain circumstances, but not in others. And so recognizing bias, recognizing source of information, that's one of those tasks. I list some other things like being engaged. We need to know, these tools that kids hold in their hands, right? That we all hold in our hands. These are the most powerful tools for engaging in our communities, in our families that we've ever seen. But those are conversations we need to have. How do we use these tools to improve the world around us, et cetera? We can go through others, but the point is those are the types of skills that we should be talking about.
So before I get to my next question, we have some hellos. We have Nilüfer from Bangladesh saying hello. We have Leila from Tunisia saying hello. We have Shahina again from Bangladesh. Obviously, we've hit it at a time where people are at home watching.
Good time zone.
Akil, my friend from UK and Tanzania. He is in the UK, but he says he's from Tanzania. I won't even try pronouncing this name. I apologize. You're from Serbia. We have someone watching from Argentina. You need to go to StreamYard and give permission. Shamal is a friend of ours, from Iraq. This is another great legend in the world of EdTech research, Mike Fisher. Welcome. We have from Macedonia. Great. Good to see Europe represented. Egypt, and on it goes. But you'll be also pleasantly surprised, because we have a mutual friend over here saying, Andrew Cole. I had to join you since you had Mr. Richard Culatta.
Now I'm nervous.
Hi, both of you gents. Hi, Andrew. Thank you so much. He does great work as well. And so when you see this global audience and teachers on engaging with you on this subject, is there a recognition that actually the way that digital media is playing out is different in different contexts? And I'd love to get your perspective on that, because you are very much an American. Your book is primarily geared at an American audience, I would say. And so what is it that those in Iraq, in Greece, in Bangladesh, what is it that they could learn from your book?
Yeah, it's a great question. And by the way, yes, there certainly are examples in the book that are based in the US. That's where I live. But ISTE is an international organization. We work in 70 countries. And there are examples in the book from all around the world. And actually, coming in just a few weeks, it's going to be released in Chinese, Greek, Vietnamese, and Ukrainian. So we do have there is a global audience. But I think what I would share, I mean, the point is, your question is still really a very good one, which is, whatever the principles are, wherever an author is from, or wherever a book is written, the context matters. And so the ideas have to be adapted and adjusted to the reality of the world that we live in. And so this is one of the reasons why, one of the things that I recommend, and I would recommend this to schools, I would recommend it to families, is it is critically important. The first step to have success in virtual spaces for young people is to set the conditions, clearly set the conditions. And one of the ways that I recommend doing this is just to create a device use agreement, right? Create an agreement for how we're going to use these things long before we get into any actual moment or question, right? Right up front and say, what is our culture? What is our family or our school culture? What do we want it to be when it comes to using technology? And define those things with your kids, right? Do it with them. And it should be things like, here's the type of person we want to be in a virtual space. Here are what our actions and our activities look like, and write it down and sign it. And that helps get the conditions set that are relevant to your family, to your beliefs, to your culture, to your country, and makes everything else much easier.
But tell me, Richard, I understand yours is a practical handbook for parents and children and families to engage with. I mean, what responsibility do you lay on the doorsteps of the big tech companies? I mean, I mean, it's easy enough saying we should be optimistic and very, very, gung-ho about embracing these things and not be scared about them. But look at the examples we have around us. You look at, subverting democracy. You look at all the child pornography. You look at all of that and say, well, how do I do this as a parent?
Yes, thank you for asking that. So when I got to tell you a little story. So when I first wrote the book, I actually had another section, which was all of my, sort of advice and recommendations and what platform providers, the big companies, should do. And when Harvard came back, they said, look, this is a book for parents. Stay focused on what the parents do. And I said, fine, but I'm putting in one chapter where I'm combining it all, because it's disingenuous to say that all of the responsibility needs to be on parents and teachers, right? And yes, we have a lot of responsibility we need to take. Don't get me wrong, but to pretend that those other players aren't part of it is not right. So I have a chapter that says, it's called "Digital Citizenship is a Team Sport," and I list, at least at a high level, what some of those things are. And let me share some, and some of them are easy to do, right? One simple thing that these online platforms can do is verify their users, right? A huge number of users on online platforms are not human. They're bots, right? And so a lot of interactions and arguments and crazy stuff that happen aren't even happening with humans, but we don't even know it because the platform providers aren't doing a good job of validating who their users are, right? And that's easy. It's doable, right? It's a solvable problem. That's thing one. Another thing that I recommend, and I was actually just working with our friends at Snapchat about this. They're thinking very seriously about how they can do a better job. Is to do what I call signposting, which is, when you go to a park and it has a sign that says, hey, don't litter, don't run if there's a pool or something, right? Those are signs that remind you how to act in that space. I was in, recently in London, getting off the underground, and there was a sign that said, if somebody's sick, help them off the train, right? Those are signposts. Well, we don't do much signposting in virtual spaces. And so one of the easy things that we could do is have those signposts show up. If it's Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, it might say something like, have you taken a minute to post a kind comment on somebody else's post today? Or have you shared something that you're doing to help make your community better? Some way that you've done community service. Those little challenges, those little nudges, those signposts can be really powerful. And that's another area that we should be expecting those platforms to do.
And so I love the pragmatic. What should we do? Mm-hmm. Begs the question: what shouldn't we do?
Yeah. So there's a number of things that fall into that category, but one of them that I would say is, I'll answer this in two ways. When it comes to talking with our kids, whether they're our students or whether they're our own children in our families, we tend to gravitate towards outlining the things not to do, right? Don't be a jerk. Don't share your information. Don't post pictures that you don't want. Don't friend people you don't know. Don't waste too much time. Don't play games all day. Don'ts, right? And we do it in schools too. I was visiting a school the other day, and I said, "Hey, can you show me your policy? Do you have a policy for how to use the internet at school?" And they said, "Yes, we do." They were very proud. I was like, "All right, show it to me." 35 don'ts. I don't know if I could even come up with 35 things not to do in a virtual space, right? And 0 do's, not a single thing that they wanted their kids to do. I said, if all you want them to do is not use this stuff, why not just pull the plug on the internet? Like, well, we can't do that. We use it to learn. And I was like, well, where is that in your agreement, right? And so the first thing that I would say is it's very important. While there's all kinds of don'ts, there's all kinds of things we want to be careful not to do and not to, put kids in a risky situation. Or it's actually much more powerful if we frame those in terms of actions that we want them to do. And the way that I compare this to is think about playing a sport, right? Or an instrument. My kids play the piano. You can't learn to play the piano. You can't learn to play a sport by being told the things not to do. You have to practice doing the skills that you want to do, but you can only do that if somebody articulates what the things are you want them to do. So those really are that's my my message on that question is think about now. There are things that we want to avoid, absolutely, but we should, as much as possible, present that in terms of here's what we want to see you doing, not what we want you to not do.
So there's a great question that's come in from Mike, and I love your photo, Mike, on here. I love the hair. I'd love to get to know your view on the issue of online safety. How much monitoring should tech companies do in order to keep students safe versus overreach of privacy concerns, monitoring bullying, depression, self-harm, violence? You've kind of answered it to some degree, but please, if you don't mind, just weighing in on this.
Mike, what a great question. I mean, it's a tricky one, and so I will give you an answer. But before I do, I want to say what I want to see is much more debate about this. I think we haven't had nearly enough discussion and debate and exploring how to do it. And that's the first thing. So do I have the right answer? I'm not sure I do. What I'm saying and what I call for in the book is we need to be talking about it a lot more. But now, to not sound like I'm totally copping out of giving you an answer, let me share this. And that is, I feel like the platforms, the social media platforms, these tools that we use, have a responsibility to tee up information that can help families and schools make better decisions. That's not exactly the same as we're going to monitor every little thing that you do and we're going to jump in and stop something that's wrong. Certainly there probably is a point where there are certain things that we might want to be having them monitor for, but it's more of informing parents and teachers. So for example, when my kids go out in the physical world, right, they go out to a friend's house to a party, I'm not spying on them. I'm not listening to everything they say, but I kind of know who they're with. I kind of know where they're going, right? It's not a mystery. If there was an emergency, I'd know where they were and I'd know generally who they were with. I think it is entirely reasonable to expect that same thing from digital platforms in the virtual world. I don't need to be monitoring or spying on every little thing that they say, but I should, as a parent, be able to at least see generally who my kids are interacting with and where they're going. And I think that's an interesting principle that we should be thinking about as a way to start conversations, not as a replacement for doing the discussions that we have to as a family about how to stay safe in a virtual space.
Richard, we're at our time. If you could just pick up that book from behind you and flash it in front of the screen again for everyone, conveniently behind you. Digital for Good, Raising Kids to Thrive in an Online World, by Richard Culatta. You can pick this up on Amazon and all the online bookstores, and it's going to be in several languages very soon. I'm a huge fan of you and your work, and obviously of ISTE. And Richard, I thank you. I thank you for participating today. And
thank you, and thank you for all you do to bring this global community together. Really, you have done such a great job of helping us learn from across zones and countries and regions in a way that's super powerful and so needed.
You're very kind. And we end on that note. Thank you all very much. We look forward to the next opportunity to speak to Richard. Bye-bye.